Well, hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Southside Stories. Just a little reminder, by the way, if you are either listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, please do subscribe to us. We've got loads of great interviews coming up, and it's a great way to keep across what's the latest episodes. But here I have Anton. And Anton runs a really interesting agency called We Are Collider, amongst many other things. Hi, Anton.
Hi, Matt. How you doing? Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm doing great, thanks. Yeah, and maybe just start by telling us a little bit about you, Anton, where you're based, your job title, and just a little bit about your company.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Anton Georges. I'm the CEO and founder of, as you rightly said, an agency called We Are Collider. We're based on Bermondsey Street. We just moved to lovely new offices, actually. Just a couple of weeks ago, we moved in here. We've been here in this area for about since 2012. Yeah, absolutely love it here.
Yeah, it's a great area, isn't it? And there's so many interesting businesses. There's a lot of creative businesses in this part of the world, isn't there?
There is. I mean, when we first moved up here, so we started the agency back in 2003. And when we started it, I lived down in Sussex, so it was kind of out that way. And we moved up to London 2012 so that we had access to a wider talent pool and for various reasons, we can go into in a while. But when we came here, first of all, it was very, very different. So in just 12, 13 years, it's changed immeasurably. But there's such a great vibe here. You know, lots of agencies, lots of creativity. Lots of really great bars, restaurants. Thursday night here is a good night to be on Bermondsey Street.
It's lively, isn't it?
It is lively, yeah. No, we love it.
Great. So tell us a bit about your background, because you've had a really interesting journey. You're involved with several companies. Tell us a little bit about that.
How far back do you want to go?
Well, it's what do you reckon? 5+ years, 10 years, something like that?
5+ years. Well, yeah. I'll go back to the beginning of We Are Collider. I started my first business back in '97, and then 2003 sold out of that and decided to start We Are Collider. As I said, started it down in Surrey, lifestyle business for a while, and then decided to come up to the big city, to the smoke, to try and grow it and create something a little bit more substantial. So I've been running Collider since 2003 through various ups and downs, lots of speed bumps on the way. And more recently, post-COVID, and I'll talk to you a bit about COVID, but post that, we've had 4 or 5 very, very strong years, and that's enabled us to kind of diversify as a business. So we've set up a holding co. We've invested in a number of other agencies. So we've invested in an earned media agency and also a technology startup called Arc, which is really, really exciting. And I've taken board positions on those businesses as well, and I'm also now a board on an organisation called 27 Names, which is a collection of 27 agencies, one from each of the countries, or each of 27 countries across Europe. Fortunately, they didn't kick the UK out when we left Brexit, so we are the only representative of the UK within 27 Names, and I've got a board position on that organisation, and also I'm on a couple of advisory boards for some not-for-profits as well.
Awesome. Some masses of really interesting experience there, which we're going to get into in a second. First, a question for you. I mean, what is it about running an agency, running a business, being involved with these businesses, as opposed to working for somebody else? What is it about doing that you love?
What do I enjoy about it? I think anybody in our part of the agency world, and it's probably wider to marketing services as well, but certainly in what we do, got to be a bit weird and a bit of an adrenaline junkie. Thrive on the chase, thrive on the excitement of the pitch, thrive on winning the client. All of those things that you get from being in and running an agency, I thrive on. So I thoroughly enjoy that side of it. I enjoy the people. There's a great culture here within our agency, but there's, again, within the wider agency community, it's, people like to work hard. They value what they do, value the creativity. And ultimately, it takes me to places, I get to work on such a diverse portfolio of clients and client problems and challenges. You just learn so much. So literally every day's a school day. It's great fun.
Yeah, awesome. And we're going to talk about some clients in a second. You mentioned, though, COVID. And of course, COVID was terrible for a lot of industries, but particularly marketing and events agencies. What did that look like for you, and how did you persevere and come out through COVID to where you are now?
It was horrendous. I think I'll probably caveat that by saying at the time we weren't just focused on events. So as an agency, we were what was called an integrated agency. We'd acquired a number of other agencies under our portfolio and under our banner and P&L. But a large proportion of the bigger sizable projects where, our real revenue and real profit lay were in events. And yeah, COVID, the event sector, the wider hospitality sector, but particularly events, large gatherings of people. It was the first industry to be shut down and it was the last one to reopen. So it was catastrophic for lots and lots of people. And we're still reeling from that now. There's a real talent gap because so many people left the industry, went into film or TV or stage. We've got ongoing problems as an industry. So it was quite horrendous. It was horrendous at the time. We had to let people go. We hung on for as long as we could up until the back end of 2020, and then we had to make some really, really tough decisions. And that kind of culminated in a root and branch restructure of the business. Which was painful personally. The business was conceived and started in the same year as my first child was born. So, I had that kind of affinity to it. I'd been with it for that long. So to lose it in that way was tough. But what it enabled us to do was restructure. And I think looking back now, it enabled us to take a legacy business and bring it up to date, to modernise it, to get it ready for what was going to come next. We took quite a brave move and decided to focus our offer in one area, which was effectively experiences. Sounds strange. We decided to do that despite that being the area that was currently closed, but we felt very strongly that it was going to come back very, very strong when it did. So, that was probably the biggest change that we made, deciding to focus in that area. So restructured, refined it, and we didn't come back stronger, but we came back very, very focused on what we wanted to achieve and deliver. And off the back of that, we've had, we came back to work in 2021. We're now 2025, so 4 years of exceptionally good, strong trading and growth.
That's great to hear. So tell us a little bit about that, and we'll pop a link to the We Are Collider website in the description because you've got some amazing stuff on there. But tell us a little bit about that. Maybe let's start with the kind of clients, some of your best clients, your most interesting clients, and the kind of work you do.
I'm not going to categorise them by the best because if I miss any out and they read it or listen to this, then I'll be in trouble, won't I? But I'd certainly tell you about our clients. When we came out of COVID, we, for the first time in my career, I decided that I wanted to build an agency that was focused on where I wanted to go every day rather than a P&L. And so I guess it was kind of a bit of a longer term view. P&L is exceptionally important. The finances are exceptionally important. But we had the opportunity to kind of start from scratch and say, well, okay, what type of business do we want to build? And so I kind of built a bit of a mantra about what we wanted to be, and I wanted to create and I wanted to achieve and maintain top tier agency status. Fundamentally, that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do. And how was I going to do that? I was going to do that by attracting and retaining the best possible talent, and that best possible talent was going to be applied to working with clients that would value what we did. So we wanted to work with brave clients. We wanted to work with exciting clients. And we wanted to work with clients that value what we, the difference that we can make to their business and that want to collaborate with us as partners. So, we don't want to work with people where it's a master servant relationship. It's where we're seen as adding value to their business. And we kind of categorize them as brave clients that wanted to be challenged, clients that wanted to disrupt, clients that wanted to do exciting things. And I felt that if we attract the right talent, so people first, right? If you get the right talent, you get the right people, then you can build strong relations. You can do great work. You can do great work, you'll win great clients. You win great clients and you've got great people, you'll build stronger relationships. If you build stronger relationships with great clients, that serves a P&L. So it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So for me, it was about creating an environment, a culture and a business that was going to be focused on the people very much first, and the type of clients that we wanted to attract. So these brave, exciting clients that value brilliant work. And to a large extent, I think we're certainly on the road to that. We've got some amazing clients. We do a lot in gaming. So again, that was something that we decided to focus on and research quite significantly while we were all sat at home during COVID. What were the growth areas? And obviously everyone was sat at home, so we recognised that gaming would be big. And so we made a play into the gaming space. So we worked with the likes of Riot Games, Pokemon, Dreamhaven, Funcom, some really, really exciting games publishers. We also do a lot of work with Red Bull, primarily around their activation as a non-endemic brand of within the gaming space. So Gamers Now is, it's a media channel, gaming. It's not just a hobby. And it's a gateway to a whole raft of huge audience. So there's a lot of non-endemic brands that want to access that audience, and they're doing so through the medium of gaming and gaming activations. And Red Bull is one of those. So we do huge esports tournaments for Red Bull, which is really exciting. And we do so internationally. About 80% of our work is overseas, only about 20% is in the UK. And we work with international clients. We've got a lot of clients in the US, we've got clients in Australia, in Germany, in Austria. Other spaces, we work in retail with people like Waitrose and Rituals, and we work in beauty we've done some projects for L'Oreal. So yeah, quite a wide variety of clients and sectors. And again, that was a goal. We didn't want to be pigeonholed as just specialists in one area. If I'm looking to attract and retain the best talent, you've got to be working with the best brands, right? So, and they like exciting stuff to be working on. It's keeping it fresh, I guess, is key.
That was a very ballsy move in COVID to say, okay, we're going to bet on live experiences. What is it? And I know it's not all you do, but it's a significant part, I think, isn't it, of your activity? Yeah. What is it about live experiences that you love producing, but more generally, just the live experience as part of the media mix? What is it about that that's so compelling for brands as well?
Sure. It sounds like a really brave move, really ballsy move. The truth is, it probably wasn't that brave and ballsy because, fundamentally, the business was on its knees. We were in a rough place. So, all of a sudden, when other avenues are taken away from you, it becomes a bit more easy to be focused. And fundamentally, it was just, it's a case of looking at the business and the area that was most scalable, was most profitable, where we had the best client relationships historically, where we did our best work, where we had the best portfolio. It was in live experiences. So in a way, it was a bit of a no-brainer to come back in that space. We also do a lot of work in behavioural science. So we research a lot. We've worked with some very well-known behavioural scientists. And over COVID, I was fascinated by what was happening to the way that people were behaving and what the forecasts were as to how they would continue to behave post-COVID. I think it's something like 80% of your behaviours of what you do are governed by your environment. So it was no wonder while we were all locked up, we did certain things. But for me, I'd certainly felt that when we weren't locked up anymore, there was going to be a real desire to go out there and to be human. Humans are social animals. So it kind of felt like it was going to be an area that would certainly bounce back very, very well. And I think that was true. The other side to it, and this isn't something that we foresaw, but I think brands have got kind of bored, or not bored, but they're recognizing that traditional performance marketing isn't as effective as perhaps they thought it was previously. Customers aren't, we've all got ad blockers, we've all got this stuff going on. So traditional digital channels weren't necessarily cutting it. Yeah, you got volume. Yeah, you could see the metrics, but actually people weren't buying so much. So what they thought was, well, okay, if it's harder to get people, what we need to do is try and, retain what we've got and build on what we've got, and obviously experiences and live and virtual. And we're in both. So, we've invested quite heavily in that technology side as well. But understanding and creating experiences that enable brands to build stronger relationships with their customers and recruit new customers to the brand. that's a given. It's across the board. I think the experiential sector has grown quite significantly, and if you look at reports like the Bellwether report, it's one of the only channels that they think is going to continue to grow. I think it was forecast to grow 14.9% this year. And that's because, it's not what we've done. It's because brands are recognizing that there's a lot of power in those personal experiences and trying to build long-lasting relationships with customers.
Yeah, I certainly, when I think of my own experiences, when I interact with a brand in the physical world, it's a much more vivid, drinks brands, for example. I mean, it's a much more vivid, not just because of the alcohol, but it's a much more tangible experience, isn't it? And it really sort of kind of stays with you. You get more of an affinity and understanding of the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is across generations, particularly with younger generations. So with millennials, Gen Zs, these kids that are coming through, Gen Alphas as well. They were born with tablets in their hands, with smartphones. They've grown up with that, and they're craving something a bit different. But it's similarly for Gen X's and Boomers, they who weren't born with that sort of stuff and perhaps don't get it quite so well. Across generations, we're social creatures. We enjoy social interactions, and it gives the brand a much bigger opportunity to really impress on those customers, on those potential customers, what they are, what they stand for, what the product is, what the experience is that they can expect. And there's a lot of research out there that says that when people do go to these type of experiences, they're that much more likely to tell more people, they're that much more likely to buy, and they're much more likely to stay loyal. So it's the market has changed, and we made some, we did a bit of research. We understood what we thought was going to happen, and it's happened, far greater than we'd anticipated, which has been wonderful.
Yeah, that social amplification is so important, isn't it? Because it's quite different from a brand, sort of broadcasting a message through digital platforms versus somebody going along to a physical event, having a great experience, having some Instagrammable experiences, and then posting it and adding their own voice and their own authenticity onto that. It's a much more powerful, authentic way, isn't it, of a brand extending its reach out.
Absolutely, and authenticity is it's a key word in today's world, isn't it?
Yeah.
And consumers crave authenticity. So it's, again, you're right. It's a great opportunity to deliver that.
You spoke about your platform and how you extend the reach of, say, a physical live event. Tell us a little bit about that.
So what I wanted to do with the agency was look at how can we continue to differentiate as a business? How can we extend the service portfolio, but without going into areas that weren't necessarily connected to what we do? Because focus, I think, is really, really key. And it certainly has been for us. I wouldn't necessarily advocate that to everybody. But for us, that's been, kind of one of the major pillars upon which our success post-COVID has been built. So I wanted to find ways that we could build the business, but not just by doing more of the same. So we've invested in two businesses so far. One is an earned media agency called Seven Communications. They're based over in Soho. Brilliant agency, do some phenomenal work. And they are focused on, so it's earned media, traditional PR, and influencer, creator, that type of content. So, and for us to be able to bring them in on the projects that we're working on and offer that as another string to our bow is really, really powerful to extend that reach of the actual experience. The other agency that we invested in, we actually started it with a lady called Charlotte, an incredible lady. So it's an investment in a startup, but that's what we call an innovation lab, but that's focusing very much on digital innovation, emerging technology, so AI, AR, virtual reality, and how those kind of come together within live experiences, but also how we can use those technologies to extend the experience. So rather than just creating a live experience that you, Matt, would go to, it's something that, Matt in Liverpool, who can't get down to London to sit, he can also experience it. because it lives, on a platform, whatever that platform might be. So looking at ways that we can do that, but also, as I said, enhance the actual live experience. So you create a proper hybrid experience that's using the latest in technology.
What's a great experience that you've been involved with when you've seen these elements come together?
Do you know what? It's like choosing your favourite child, isn't it? I wouldn't necessarily want to answer that question. I mean, we do it every day, and we work on all sorts of different projects where, to a lesser or greater extent, is that done. I guess probably one of the projects that I'm most proud of is one that we did just out of COVID, which was the Netflix launch of a piece of gaming IP called Arcane for Riot Games, and that was a global launch. It included AR activations, interactive activations. It was ostensibly a live activation, but it did use a lot of emerging technology in its creative, in its application. We pulled the whole thing together in about 10 weeks from brief to delivery. We delivered it in London, Paris, Madrid, Istanbul, Singapore, and LA. And then there was another 8 cities where they had kind of a lesser activation. It was brilliant. It was a real culmination of live, digital, and virtual, done in a relatively short space of time. But it was kind of the stats that came out of that, what it delivered. We also, another great thing, we got to launch it on the world's tallest building, which was really exciting, out in Dubai. We created a 3-minute film that was broadcast onto the building, onto the Burj. And yeah, the stats that came out of it were pretty impressive. That series got to number 1 on Netflix in 52 countries in just 6 days. I think they had 34 million downloads in a relatively short period of time. So in terms of, bringing all of our skills together, reaching and engaging and interacting with an audience through social content, and then seeing that transpire into, real return on investment for the client, that it was... it was great and very well awarded. I think we won 6 or 7 awards for that.
Fantastic. Sounds awesome. Tell us a little bit. Let's just change tack slightly. The business of running creative agencies, marketing agencies. Tell us a little bit about that and what that looks like in 2025 in terms of how easy or difficult is it to get to a really good, profitable agency, and what are some of the kind of cost pressures and things you have to deal with to get to a healthy state of business?
I mean, that's a podcast in its own.
It is on its
own. It's a tough market, and I'm involved in one part of the agency world, so I can speak with confidence about that, but sort of comment on what I see across the other areas. And I think it's a challenging environment. It's tough in any environment at the moment. It's hard to run a business, and it's hard to make money in a business, and that gets harder. Particularly, for smaller businesses, it's a lot tougher. It's been well documented, some of the changes that have come about as a result of the latest budget. It all adds to it creates impact. It creates costs that you can't necessarily pass on. Inflation, that's something that's real. Our team feel it. So, it does put pressure on wages. Outside of that element of it, probably the hardest part is we're a service industry. And a lot of our work is project based. So although we retain our clients, I think we've got 95% client retention over the last 12 years or something. That includes through COVID. In the experiential space. But, the projects, there's no guarantee you finish the project. There's no guarantee that they're going to do another one next month or next year or whenever. So you're only as good as your last job. That's a pressure when you're growing and expanding and taking people on, knowing that you're going to have the work for them in 6 or 12 months is a challenge.
Yeah.
And then, again, as a service industry, our asset is our people. our differentiator is our people and the work that we do. And people aren't machines. You can't switch them on, switch them off. And people have emotions and they have feelings and help creating a culture and an environment where people want to come to work. That takes a lot of hard work and a lot of thinking and a lot of investment. And that's tough. That's difficult. It's also great and very rewarding when you do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you find the sort of talent pool right now? Many businesses, not only to creative, but tell me about challenges in finding great talent, holding on to great talent. Yeah,
it is difficult. I mean, when we first moved up to London back in 2012, that was one of the main reasons that we wanted to do it, because it enabled us to fish in a bigger talent pool. COVID created challenges on that, because a lot of people, as I said, our industry first to be shut down and the last to open, people had pressures. So they left the industry, they retrained, they went and did other things. So, there was a massive brain drain across every level. So that's been difficult. There was that put pressure on salaries, on wages as well, because obviously you've got less people, more demand, because the industry came back so strongly. So that was a challenge at the time. I think it's changed slightly now. There's more availability of people, but finding the real talent. And again, I go back to what we said when we came out of COVID, was we wanted to, achieve and maintain that top tier agency status by attracting and retaining the best possible talent. So it's not easy, it's not difficult to find people. It's always difficult to find the best people.
Yeah. What advice would you give somebody that is running an agency or thinking of running an agency? What are one or two things that, all of that experience that you've had, what are one or two key pieces of advice you'd give to somebody?
It's really, really difficult. And I don't know that there's a silver bullet, to be honest. There's nuances to every business, and it is really, really tough. I can only say what's worked for us, and I think what's worked for us is kind of creating this virtuous circle of people, clients, and work. And if you get the people right, if you attract the best people, they can win the best clients, they can do the best work. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and ultimately that delivers profitability. So for me, I think people come first, and it's no surprise really, is it? We're a people-based business. If you get the people right, then good things should follow. I also think it's important to try and take a long view and play the long game, and that's not always easy when you're a small business and you're struggling. There might be pressures on cash flow or whatever, but if you can, try and take a longer term view. And don't ignore the numbers. Absolutely, I'm a real stickler for the P&L. My FD will tell you, I'm over the numbers on a daily basis, but don't be ruled by them. Play the long game. Sometimes you have to.
Do you still have to, going back to your point about work in agencies these days seems to be very retainers are less and less common, aren't they?
In our area where we specialise, i.e. that kind of live and virtual experiences, they're very, very hard to come by. But the flip side to that is what we do is very, very difficult to do well. So when you do it well, if you're designing a new website, nobody knows, or very few people know it's going to launch on a certain day, because nobody's waiting for it. If you've got an event for 10,000 people, and they're all there, 8 o'clock on such and such day or whatever it is, that event isn't ready and doesn't open. You've got 10,000 people that know about it, right? So what we do is high pressure, and by virtue of that, if you do it well and if you deliver well, clients trust you. And when you build trust with clients, then they tend to be a lot more loyal. So, doing a great job kind of gives you the ability to not get retained work, but get repeat work.
Do you still have to go and hunt for brand new clients, or are you in a situation? Yeah.
We have an active sales and marketing machine, if you like, and so we do that. It is quite focused. It is quite targeted. We don't. Again, we come back to the type of clients where we're going to do our best work. And one of the things that I did when I came back out of COVID was I set a really, really high pitch win rate, and I said, right, we're going to go for 70% pitch win rate. And everyone was like, particularly the creative team, they're like, what? That's tough. And I said, no. It's because I just want to get better at making sure that the work that we're going for, we're going to be more likely to win. So knowing your market, knowing the clients that are going to want what you're trying to sell them, that's part of getting a very, very high pitch win rate. So for me, being focused on the type of clients that you're going for, the type of work that you're doing, and not being afraid to say no, this isn't right for us, but I could put you in touch with someone that is, that's really, really powerful. We do a lot of outreach, and we win new clients. But again, we set ourselves a metric in terms of the type of work that we wanted to get inbound, rather than just kind of the stuff that comes in through our outbound efforts. And I think I can't remember the exact metric, but we get a lot of inbound inquiries now because we do great work in certain areas, and so it's a word of mouth industry. Your name gets about. So we do go out there, we do look for work, but we get a lot of inbound inquiries as well, and they're great because then you don't necessarily have to pitch.
Yeah, even better. Great. So let's move to, and you've alluded to this already, the diversification. You mentioned ARC and 7 Communications.
Yes.
Tell us more about that, because that's an interesting strategy of investment and diversification. Tell us the kind of drivers behind why you started to go down this path.
Which one, on ARC or on both?
Really, it's more of a general question, because you could have just stuck to We Are Collider, just doing what you do brilliantly well. But you've taken some interesting positions or become involved. Just as a strategy, why did you decide to do that?
There was a lot to it. One, I wanted to strengthen. So I guess it was about de-risking and strengthening. It wasn't diversification for the sake of diversification, which I had been guilty of pre-COVID, where we'd invested and bought agencies before. We'd done so in businesses and areas of the marketing mix that we didn't necessarily understand and weren't core to what we really were as a business. So I kind of learned from that and realized that didn't necessarily work so well. So I wanted to be focusing on areas that were co-joined to what we do. So, 7 in what they do, it can add benefit to what we do. It enhances our offer to our clients. So it becomes a point of difference when we're talking to a client. It's like, well, we can do that. And we can also amplify it. So we can guarantee, now, if you want to work with your own media agency, that's fine. But we can do that. Even if you don't want us to do that, the fact that we've got that as a service offering means that we understand it. So we're creating executions, we're creating experiences that we know will get traction with the press. We know they'll get traction with, on social media, because we've got that experience in house. So it's kind of building on our current capabilities, but also investing in brilliant people. The team there, the owners are both very talented, and I wanted to have them sat around our table as much as us sat around theirs. And then for ARC, I firmly believe that every industry will be affected by the emerging technologies. And whilst there isn't an AI out there at the moment that can plan and execute the perfect event, it is coming into our industry. So we need to understand that. We need to understand how we can streamline and optimize our business so that we become so we're making the most of those technologies, and we're staying ahead of the game, but also looking at how we can use those technologies to make our experiences that much more exciting, to make them that much more engaging. And I can't remember who it was, but someone said your job won't be taken by an AI. It'll be taken by somebody who knows how to use AI. So if we know how to use it, then we're going to be in a better place to defend our position as an agency. I see it as an emerging space. I think it's a huge differentiator for us as a business. It's a massive value add. And I think a lot of brands are going to be investing in it quite heavily as it evolves. And I'm also interested in it. It's quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've answered this question, actually, because I was going to ask you sort of what's the criteria by which you decide where to invest or become involved. But it sounds like it's the people, differentiation. Maybe there's a gap in your current offering and you think that's going to be an important area for the future. Is that right? Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's people, product, and profile. So, are they the right people, or is there a good team there? Is the product something that matches our products, that can enhance our products, or our product can enhance theirs and help them to upsell? And profile, are they well respected and thought of? So, when I'm kind of looking, and I don't do it, I'm not out there every day, but if an opportunity comes across, those are initial, the initial thought process. And then, as you get into that process, it's basically maths, physics, and chemistry. The maths, can you make the numbers work? Physically, does it work? Are there ways to optimize? If they're in the Outer Hebrides, how's that physically going to work? And then chemistry, again, it comes down to people. And that's probably the biggest one, because when your back's against the wall, you want to know that, the people that are there with you are people you trust, you can rely on, and that you go to battle with.
Yeah. This might be a really difficult one to answer. And I think you probably alluded to it, but the marketing agencies have changed a lot, particularly, I don't know, the last 10 years or so. I mean, my career started in marketing in the sort of late 90s and noughties. In those days, it was print, the beginning of digital. And now it's just so different, all of the channels, all the digital channels. Where do you think the marketing agency of the future, what do you think that sort of looks like in the next couple of years?
Yeah, again, marketing is such a broad term. I think it's difficult to answer that specifically. But I'm not an economist. I'm not a soothsayer. Definitely don't have all the answers. But I guess I definitely think it will be one that has embraced or learned to embrace AI to streamline and optimize, and whether it's one that's developed its own sort of proprietary AI-based tools to give it a differentiator, or one that has learned to work with them. I think it's here to stay, and it's only going to get bigger. I think as an adjunct to that, then probably one of the biggest foibles of the marketing industry has been charging for time. And I think, over time that will need to change, because if AI is driving down the amount of time that it takes to do things, then clients, they'll in-house it, they'll do it themselves, or they'll recognize that actually where it would have taken a human being 4 hours, it only takes an AI 4 minutes. Well, I'm not going to pay you, 4 hours to do something that I know a tool can do in 4 minutes. So I think it's, agencies will probably have to get more used to charging for the quality of their work and the creative response, rather than the time and the output. So I think in some way, shape or form, there's an evolution that a lot of businesses will find it hard to go through, and a lot of clients will find it hard to accept, probably. So yeah, I think it's an interesting time. It's again one of the reasons why I like experiential, because I don't see that there's going to be an AI bot that can very easily do everything that is needed to do to pull off a major launch in 6 cities, simultaneously. That requires such a broad skill set. There's not going to be one thing that can take all of that away. So I think to an extent we're a little bit future proofed.
Makes that decision even better, doesn't it? That one you made after COVID.
I'll tell you in 10 years.
Let's move to the end of this. It's been a great conversation, Anton. We always finish on this, which is around leadership. And I'm curious actually about 2 things. One is, all of this experience running agencies, investing in agencies. How would you say that your leadership style has changed over those years? And while you're thinking of that one, a supplementary one to that one is who's been a great influence on you in your professional life? And just to give you a flavour, some people, I'd say half of the time, people choose that first inspirational boss, but some people choose mentors and famous people. But your leadership style and how it's changed. And who's been a great influence on you?
Yeah, so leadership style, that's a really difficult one, but without a doubt it has changed. But I think, with age and grey hair comes wisdom and experience. And so you probably don't react emotionally to the challenges that I get now that I would have done, had I got them 10 years ago when I didn't have that experience. So I think, and also, to be fair, I think having a business that is very stable and secure from a financial perspective gives you the ability to be a little bit more tempered and maybe not be quite so knee-jerk. So I think as a human being, I've probably learned to think more, to listen more. I think probably, again, comes back to that people thing, because I've got so many brilliant people around me in the team. That means I've had to change my leadership style. They can do everything better than me. So, I've got to turn up where I can add value rather than, trying to own everything and control everything. Yeah. So that's a lovely position to be in as well. So I think age and wisdom and experience mean that your leadership style does change. And, you can't necessarily have hindsight early. You can't necessarily, put an old head on young shoulders. But if I was talking to someone, I would try and, impress on them the need to take a step back every now and then and think of the bigger picture and the longer game and say, well, okay, is it really worth doing that, thinking that, acting in that way? So, maybe a bit calmer is probably how I am now to how I used to be. I've always been quite driven. So, and that I probably took that to extremes in my past, which I'm not particularly proud of.
Did you go through a cycle, or not a cycle, but did you bust through? I was talking to somebody the other day. Actually, they're a successful business. They're growing rapidly. They're now at 60. He was saying to me his biggest challenge is delegation, and I think it's because he had done all of the jobs in his business, and handing it off or delegating, and there was a trust thing and some other things intertwined. But it sounds like you've gone through that perhaps a long time ago.
I did, because all of a sudden I had brilliant people who are far better at doing a lot of those things than I ever was or ever could be. I think probably the hardest one was when I decided, I was kind of the MD, so operationally very involved in the business. And I employed a wonderful managing director, a lady called Tracy Sorgiovanni, who's just astoundingly good. And she'd been with us, 3 or 4 years. And I realised that actually she came in as operations director. And I realised she was the MD, and I needed to let go of that and let go of that title and try and find my way, try and find where I was going and what I needed to do. And that was mentally difficult for me to get my head round. But once I'd done it, it was brilliant, because she's astounding. And so, and that's freed me up to do other things, to look at investments, to get involved with 27 names. I'm involved with an organisation called Elevate Mentoring, which is about upskilling talent in the industry. So, do other things that perhaps, my experience can be brought to the table and she can get on with running the business. I think on the whole, no, I didn't have that problem, because everyone that was coming in was so much better than me. The difficult one was that, final, oh God, no, it's my baby, and letting it go. But I am involved day to day. As I say, we run a tight ship. I spend a lot of time thinking about the strategy, thinking about the sales, the marketing, what we're doing next, where we're going as a business. So I've got the time to be able to do that. So it hasn't been as painful as I thought it might be.
Great. And coming back to the question of who's been a great influence on you?
My first boss I didn't get on with, so it's definitely not him. I think probably the person that's been the biggest influence, and I hope he doesn't ever watch this, because it'd be a bit embarrassing, but he's a mate of mine, but he's also a business owner. He founded another local business. So his name's Fraser Hardy, and he started a company called Blue Rubicon, who are based over in Moore, London. They are now, so when he started them as Blue Rubicon. They're now a global consultancy firm called Teneo. And what he did with that agency was just astounding. And I first worked with them, so we partnered with them on a project in 2011. And I met some of his team. I didn't work with him, I worked with some of his team. And I came back and I remember sending him a text just saying, they are, without a shadow of a doubt, the best people I've ever worked with in my life. they were brilliant. And, that was kind of the standard he set across that agency. And that's what inspired me to think, well, okay, that is how you build a good agency, in our sector, is by getting the best people. And so seeing what he did and, trying in some small way to emulate that. And he's been a great mentor to me since. And, when we came out of COVID, or through that whole period, to be honest, as a mate, he was there. And, he continues to offer advice today. So it would probably be him if I was to look at a business person.
Great way to finish. Anton, thank you so much for that. That was fascinating. I hope to get along to one of your live experiences. I'll
send you some tickets to one. Would you rather a food and drink festival at Tobacco Dock or an esports tournament?
The food and drink for sure.
Okay.
My wife is a big foodie, so she would.
Get down to the Waitrose Food and Drink Festival this November.
Yeah, absolutely. That looks great.
That's one of ours. You'll have a wonderful time.
Brilliant. Anton, best of luck for 2025 and beyond. Thank you so much for your time today.
Cheers. Thank you very much.